Good evening and welcome to This Happy Guru. My name's Kirsty Bentley-Taylor. I'm the host of this show and happy 2019, happy new year. I feel like really excited to be sharing 2019 with you all and so grateful for you all being present and here. This year I'm starting off with a bit of a bang. I kind of feel like 2019, it's a 3 year, so it's all about kind of revealing things and change. And I really want to be a little bit more kind of honest and candid, more so than I have been in my previous shows, about how it is that I live my life and how it is that I manage the things that I manage that come into my life, the challenges, the emotions, anxieties, all that sort of stuff, right through from my work through to my parenting. And that's going to start this year with a series that I am working on and through with you guys called Ancient Antidotes. I'm starting here really because I'm sort of beginning to reflect back how it is that I've come to my own state of happiness and well-being that is fully holistic, that is fully present, and that I feel is the most in-ground in my soul and my spirit that I've ever been in my life. And this was kind of a reflection that came back to me over the Christmas and New Year period, always when I take a bit of a break. And I tend to do that over Christmas and New Year because it's always very family-oriented time for me. But always when I give myself that opportunity to relax, sit back, take stock, not be kind of fully present in generating and reflecting and serving and helping people, I always get a little bit of a reflection back to myself of how far I've come. And that often goes not just from the last year, but also throughout my life. I begin to almost sort of take stock, if you like, at the end of the year. And it always feels like a great time to do that when it's the culmination of one year going into the beginning of the next. Feels like a great time to kind of tie up the loose ends, really see the fundamental lessons that I've learned and really kind of focus in on what I can take from that going forward into my work and into my life and generally, into who I am as a person and how I can best serve and best reflect going forward. So over Christmas, I kind of had a little bit of a jolt. At the beginning of December, one of my friends was imprisoned in Indonesia, in Bali, for using THC, which is a derivative of the cannabis plant. It's the psychoactive part of the cannabis plant, but it's also there's kind of two that you'd be aware of probably is the CBD part of cannabinoids and the THC part of the cannabis plant. So when you split those two, the cannabis plant up into the two derivatives, you have CBD, which basically doesn't have the psychoactive component, and you have the THC oil, which does. Both things can be used for different medicinal purposes, and my friend Phil was using the THC to counteract the pain and the sort of the physical distress he's experiencing through early onset arthritis. Now, Pip has always been a really, really active guy. He's fully been into like weightlifting and bodybuilding and conditioning and always down the gym, kind of he's done taekwondo, I think, and Thai boxing was when I first met him. He was well into his Thai boxing and living in Thailand at the time. And he's since recently picked up surfing, which was something that he did when he was a lot younger, living in Cornwall, and is now kind of practicing all over the world. And he has been experiencing pain throughout, kind of, getting back into his body and all that sort of thing, 45 years old now, from this hip operation that he had to have due to an accident in his late 20s, I believe. So he's been using THC oil to counterbalance his arthritic pain. Now, in some parts of the world, this is no great shakes anymore. Like when I was growing up, even the mention of the word cannabis was completely taboo, really like illegal, and you were going to get, pulled over for the police for just having an eighth in your back pocket. It was very much all to do with recreational use, and cannabis was very much billed as being a kind of a gateway drug to your real class A's, your heavy drugs, your cocaine, your heroin. And my experience of that growing up was very different and yet very much under the umbrella of illegal. So nobody really ever spoke about it. When you had a joint, you had it very much in private. If you were, taking your hit from a bong or anything like that, or choosing to ingest any edibles that were made from cannabis, It was very much kind of done in the privacy of your own home or in the clandestine place of, like, for me anyway, in my late teens, it was like a park area or something like that. It was kind of somewhere dark and away from open, like from the open eyes, from vision, from other people kind of being able to know what you were doing. So it was all very clandestine. And in my experience, when I would go to purchase my cannabis for recreational use at that time, and I think I had my first joint when I was 15, and really used cannabis recreationally up until about the age of 28 when I first fell pregnant with my first child. So throughout that whole kind of almost sort of 12-year period, 13-year period of my life, I was using cannabis certainly weekly, if not daily. Some periods of that time were very, very much more of like consumption wise than other times. And I danced around it. I never felt like I was really addicted, but I really, really enjoyed it. It made me feel quite calm. It made me feel quite tranquil. And I'm very much a person of high energy. And when I was younger, there was less to kind of occupy my energy. And sometimes that energy would turn into anxiety, especially around emotional things, around boyfriends, around friendships, stuff like that. I would find that my energy levels would be distracted and channeled into some sort of more negative thought processes where I would certainly highly overthink things and go into a place of kind of almost paranoia through my own overthinking. I think that's quite usual when you're a teenager as well, to kind of not really have so much of a sense of self that you're quite easily led, that other people's opinions become sort of really, really important to you and dictate the way that you are. And this is obviously, where social conditioning comes in as well, this idea that, that you have to be a certain way. Certainly growing up in the 90s, I've discussed before, Kate Moss was kind of the ideal figure for a woman. When I was growing up in the 90s, she was the epitome of beauty and of success and of what an English girl should kind of look like. Well, as a 5'2", well-rounded young lady at that time, Kate Moss was never going to be, a real achievement for me. I was never going to be that sort of 5'8", 5'10", stick-thin girl. And so there was a lot of self-judgment about that, and that was impounded through fashion, through the media, through the cultural ideals that women were being put under at that time. And so one of my ways of kind of getting out of that headspace was really to begin to feel a little bit better about myself. And I found that weed certainly did that for me. It made me relax more. It made me more self-accepting. It got me out of that anxious headspace, if you like. And not just through my idea of what I look like out into the world, but also in my relationships and in my friendships. And I found that, I had a lot more fun in friendships rather than really, I suppose, feeling like I didn't quite fit in. Because that was another thing that I felt growing up, was that I didn't quite fit in. I had a slightly different outlook from the world than my peers did for the majority, for the most part. And where that's come to serve me really, really well in adulthood, and since I kind of really began to realise that in that idea of feeling different from other people, there was a lot of strength, and there's a lot of creativity, and there's a lot of feeling like I can really take on the world. At that time, it made me feel very self-doubtful. I didn't feel particularly confident of myself, and I took steps back from really being able to open up as this kind of free-thinking, energetic being that I knew I was right from a young age. So I kind of began to almost self-mute a little bit. And this is a conversation that I had with myself when I fell pregnant with my son in 2004, because I stopped, as soon as I found out I was pregnant, I stopped all recreational use of cannabis. I was smoking tobacco at the time, and I stopped that. I stopped drinking. I stopped everything. I really took my pregnancy very seriously and began to take a lot of different make a lot of different lifestyle changes because of it. And one of the things that I kind of outed was cannabis use. I just didn't want to take it. I didn't want to take anything. I wanted to keep my body as pure as it could be. I stopped drinking coffee. I stopped drinking tea. I felt like this responsibility to grow this child was huge. And when I found out that I was pregnant, I locked myself away for a couple of days and just went through how this was going to go, how this next period of my life was going to go for me. what it was that I wanted to achieve through my pregnancy and through motherhood. And I really kind of spent 48 hours literally locked away in a hotel room, thinking about what it was that I wanted to do going forward. And so one of the things that I wanted to do was go through this transformational period of my life, completely clean, completely present, and knowing and feeling everything 100%, because this is one of the things that came back to me, was that daily use of cannabis, smoking it, and using it as a way of relaxing and letting go of the anxieties and the energy and everything that I had during the day. As much as it helped me in a lot of ways, I also felt like it kind of clouded and dumbed down some of the feelings that should have been more present in my life. I was in a relationship for a long time during my 20s. And I really feel like a large part of that relationship, I should have been more present, that I was kind of using the cannabis at the time to take myself out of the present state that I wasn't happy in, and using it as a way of dulling down my emotions attached to that. And I didn't want to go through that next part of my life in that state. I wanted to be fully present, and I wanted to give my best to this child. So I stopped and I started looking back, and I started reflecting back on what it had done for me, and what some of the things that had been the most amazing things for me, I suppose, was how much I'd achieved in spite of all the ideas that I'd been given about cannabis. So growing up, like I say, in the 90s, it was very much an illegal drug. Cannabis was really seen as a gateway drug to the Class A drugs, that, if you started smoking cannabis, then it was like a given that you were going to be on, using crack cocaine and heroin and LSDs and, all the other things, ecstasy and everything like that, sort of almost immediately. That was a given. And I never, ever had that experience. It never ever invited me to want to do anything else through the use of it. I've never been a drinker. Alcohol just does not sit with me. It never has. I might have a celebratory drink here and there, but I'm certainly not somebody who regularly consumes alcohol, and I never have been. So for me, weed was kind of my way of being able to, just chill out, relax, and take a load off. And then when I fell pregnant with my son, and I looked back over my weed smoking years, if you like, I realized how much I'd achieved. And I kind of really then began to throw out the idea as well that, stoners, people that use weed regularly, are unachievers, that they won't get anywhere in life, that they kind of like just tune out and pop out of life. Actually, that wasn't the case with me. I traveled 2 continents extensively. I was, really, really active and busy throughout that travel. I was kind of, I think back, I was sandboarding, I was glacier climbing, I was whitewater rafting, I was hiking, up to sort of 5,000-6,000 meters. I was, what else was I doing? Got horse riding around Bolivia, camper vanning through Australia. I was just achieving so much on a personal level and on an adventure level. And I felt like I'd really achieved a lot. I bought a home in that time. I sold a home in that time. I bought another home abroad in that time. I sold another home abroad in that time. I trained to do reflexology. I learned my anatomy and physiology. All of these things that I'd achieved through a period of time when technically, if I listened to the naysayers, I really was just bumming out and taking the easy way out and not facing life and kind of just cutting myself out of being present in an active life, both social, both career-minded, and sort of through financial and spiritual ways as well. And as I look back, I could think, this is just all rubbish. Actually, everything that I've done has been accentuated when I've chosen to smoke marijuana or cannabis, and nothing bad has happened to me. I don't have a smoker's cough. I never have had. I've always been physically fit throughout. None of the fear-mongering that I had experienced around me at the time had come true. And over the course of that decade plus, I felt like I had a good enough bridge to be able to look back and say, actually, the stuff that they've been telling me that's going to happen hasn't happened. And not just to me, but to a number of my friends around me who would regularly smoke weed as well, who was regularly using cannabis for their own sense of I suppose, calming down, you know, managing anxiety. Some people were managing sort of more emotional traumas through that as well, you know, like challenging upbringings and stuff. So, you know, I was looking at them as well, and I was thinking, actually, we've all managed to hold down, you know, really good careers. We've all managed, I've got friends who have opened multiple businesses, earning six-figure sums, who are regular weed users. And again, it would be their kind of opiate choice, if you like, their drug of choice to calm themselves down. And some people might have a glass of wine at the end of the day or smoke tobacco throughout the day. They would probably just come home and have a little joint or something, and that be that. You know, that was kind of their thing. If not every day, then every week for sure. And I wasn't seeing any negativity associated with this. Probably the only negative thing that people would say is that, oh, you know, I get the real munchies. It's no good for my waistline. You know, and that was about the only thing. So I started looking into this more and realizing that one of the things that I've always felt shame about using cannabis was something that has been, you know, a social construct that has been really built up over the last sort of 60, 70 years. And I started being interested in that, why that fear-mongering suddenly. What is it that really began to shape mankind's idea of cannabis and why it shouldn't be used for the medicinal uses that it's, you know, that history dictates are thousands and thousands of years old. Why we're not using it for our mental health as well, in terms of anxiety, in terms of depression, being able to treat through things like anorexia and stuff like that as well, being able to let go of the construct of the mind that holds tight around certain ideas, which is something that cannabinoids are very, very good at doing. And so I started to look back into the history of cannabis, and it's fascinating. So there is so much history around cannabis. And really, this is one of the reasons that I came up with the idea of ancient antidotes, because cannabis really is an ancient antidote. It's been used for millennia by people across the globe. And as I looked back on the geography of cannabis, you have to look back over 12,000 years, and that's through our own documents. That's through archaeology and, you know, the mummified remains of the cannabis plant being found in literally all over the world, and in all different places. So in tombs as part of ritualistic ceremonies to send the dead on their way, inside pipes from shamans from all different parts of the globe, when they're treating, you know, patients, and also to open minds and to open consciousness for themselves. These traditions have been documented in cave paintings on the walls, in you know, pottery, in artwork, in tattoos that have been found in mummified corpses. The marijuana, or the cannabis leaf, if you like, you know, that symbolic leaf that I'm sure we're all aware of, has been documented as being on top of Buddha, on top of Shiva's headdress, or, you know, throughout religions, throughout history. And I felt like, actually, when I began to open this amazing cave of knowledge that the cannabis plant can kind of indict in us, I really am going down through history, through cultures, through ancient medicines and ancient ways of treating and opening up consciousness, and using this plant for physical ailments, emotional ailments, mental ailments, and also to be able to open up the spirit. Because when you begin to look back into the use of cannabis, that's really how the shamans of old and the medicine people of old were using the cannabis plant, looking at the body, the mind, the human being holistically, and going in at the base level and going in at soul level. And that is something that cannabis has been used for thousands and thousands of years. So I started going into where it is exactly that cannabis came from. Where did the plant originate? Trying to go back way, way, way back. You know, really finding a home, really finding a starting point for cannabis. And it starts off, well, our history so far anyway, documents it as starting off in Central Asia. So around like the sub-Indian subcontinent. And it is been talked about through a guy. I came across this guy, Barney Ward, who has done a lot. He's a professor of geography in University of Kansas in Lawrence. And he really looked at the geography of cannabis, how the plant was spread across the world. So he finds its origins around 12,000 BC in Central Asia, and it's being used there, grown specifically for a number of different reasons. This is why the plant itself is so fabulous as well. It can be used for cloth. It can be used for rope. It can be used for cottons and anything like that. So to be able to construct clothing, to be able to construct farming equipment and ways of holding, moving, maneuvering plants and wood and stone and all these sorts of things that you might use for building and for really growing civilizations. So it's one of its amazing uses as a plant. And then the derivatives of that have been to use the cannabis plant for balms, for salve, for healing on the skin, to be able to take away pain through the same way, to be able to use it as a tincture, something that you ingest to be able to help digestion, to be able to calm acidic reactions within the body. Then there's stuff like around inflammation. So again, to be able to take for inflammation of the joints, of the liver, all sorts of things. Like when you get into it, there's honestly so much. And then to be able to use the flower to be able to open the mind. And this is, I suppose, what we're most used to seeing, derivatives of the flower of the cannabis plant being used for the THC value within that flower to be able to open the mind, to be able to connect more deeply with spirit, and to be able to really connect in also with our place in the natural world. Because that's one of the things, I suppose, that has been documented over time. And certainly shamans would use it from millennia ago, almost through to present day, to be able to open the mind, to be able to open the channels, the energy channels, spiritual channels between us and other parts of the universe, to be able to connect more deeply, to be able to recognize our connection and our oneness in the world. And I've spoken about this a lot, getting hold of this connection, really being able to feel the connection that we all deserve to feel as we live on this planet, so that we can protect this planet and really recognize and harness all the amazing energy and potency in the plants and the energies around us, to be able to heal, to be able to grow, to be able to ascend, which is essentially what I believe is the reason for us all kind of being here, to be able to go through this dimension and ascend into others. And cannabis is a gateway drug for that, if anything. Not into kind of some of the other, the class A drugs that have been determined to be so, again, when they're abused, taken down into a level of almost human destruction. But cannabis has actually been used for millennia to open up the mind and to open up the connection with higher realms. And this is something that, I became particularly interested in going over the history of this drug and what it was used for. So for the majority over history, it's been used as a medicinal drug and a spiritual drug. Vikings, medieval Germans used cannabis for relieving pain through childbirth and through toothache, which, if you think about it, these are the kind of things that you can never get away from. These pains, you're going to feel them any kind of way. It's the idea that it's an evil drug is a really, really recent construction. People have been using cannabis throughout the ages across the world. So I'm just going to read out through stuff. You know me, I always kind of start printing stuff out so that I can remember where I'm going. So the earliest ideas of cannibalism, using cannabis in the Central Asian and Indian subculture, for using the hemp plants, have been kind of through about 12,000 years ago. They were generally, the people at that time around that area were using it for spiritual purposes, using it for medicinal purposes, and then using the byproduct, the hemp part of that, for their clothing and for cultivating, the plant as farming and using it to trade. So also, the cannabis has been cultivated in Japan since the pre-Neolithic period for its fibers and for a food source, because hemp powder is, it's an amazing source of vitamins and nutrients. Also possibly on the psychoactive level there as well. So Japanese history dating right back there. An archaeological site in the Oki Islands near Japan contains cannabis achenes from about 8,000 years BC, probably signifying use of the plant. Hemp use archaeologically dates back to, again, Neolithic age in China. So all around that area, we're looking at 12 to 8,000 years ago, using it as a holy plant and representing that holiness and that respect for the plant through decorations on pottery, on shamanic wear, the typical costumes of the people of that time who were seen and revered for their medical knowledge, for their own personal experience, for the way that they could treat people, being able to look into the soul and to be able to guide people into treatment through soul need. The Chinese later used hemp to make clothes, shoes, ropes, and an earliest form of paper. The earliest form of paper was on a hemp, so through a derivative of the cannabis plant. It was an important crop in Korea, with samples of hemp and fabric discovered dating early back as 3000 BCE. So humans have been using this plant for millennia for various different reasons. And it's really only the earliest restrictions on cannabis were reported in the Islamic world in the 14th century. In the 19th century, it began to be restricted in colonial countries, often associated with racial and class stresses. There was one crazy quote that I read that was, I can't remember, I think it was from the Americas, actually, saying that what cannabis use did was to create a kind of a relaxed response between black and white people at that time. So it gave the black man the idea that he was as good as the white man, and it gave the white woman the idea that she could cohort with other races. It was kind of that, again, that bridging, that control that had been put in through conditioning at that time, and essentially fear conditioning at that time as well. And I think one of the reasons that kind of all of this has come about is because of the idea that actually cannabis opens your mind and opens up and rejects fears and negativities that are constructs of our cultures and societies that have been built up through the kind of the people that have exerted power throughout the ages, and how they've managed that power, which has generally been through fear mongering. So entering the 21st century, some nations have begun to change their approaches to cannabis, but the damage, I feel like it's kind of already been done across the globe. As I said, like in the 80s and the 90s when I was growing up, across the globe, cannabis was illegal. And to be able to use it was really about finding other people, other like-minded souls, and really, going through a kind of black market way of being able to get hold of cannabis. And that was certainly the experience that I had traveling around. Didn't for 1 minute, because it was illegal, didn't for 1 minute mean that it wasn't available, didn't for 1 minute mean that there wasn't a whole culture, a subculture attached to it. If you think about kind of, I suppose, the Rastafari, certainly with, Bob Marley's popularity, that became a huge open ground for cannabis to be talked about, to be discussed in more open channels. And his music and his kind of the open mind and the revolutionary aspect to it all, that was then sort of polarized through people like Che Guevara, and opening up political dialogues and stuff like that. It all began to merge into one, and cannabis became kind of this revolutionary drug, this drug that actually kind of could keep your mind open, and that would invite you to think outside of the box, outside of the constructs that had been created for us, by the powers that be, by governments, by these fear mongers, essentially, who wanted to control the masses because it meant that they could then harness that energy for their own gain. That's my own personal perspective, but it's also, when I look back through history and through the cultures, it becomes obvious that, really it's all about control. And so this is one of the reasons that I kind of wanted to open up this dialogue around cannabis, because what we're also seeing now is more and more use of the cannabis plant for medicinal purposes. So take out the whole spiritual, opens your mind, relaxes you, calms anxieties, all that sort of thing that I've actually had a personal experience of. And let's move into the more medicinal areas of cannabis use, because there are thousands and thousands and thousands of examples now of people of all ages with all sorts of different afflictions, really, really heavy duty pain that people are living with in forms of MS, epilepsy, arthritis, cancer, thyroid problems, all sorts of autoimmune system issues that cannabis as a plant actually really, really works well on. The body really responds well to it. It bridges gaps that these diseases, these afflictions are creating in the body. And since we can't really identify at the moment exactly what it is that's causing these afflictions, surely the idea of a plant, and a body on this planet, a physical entity on this planet that our body absorbs and can be processed perfectly because it is a plant derivative, because your cells on a cellular level recognize it as being something that won't harm them and that they will actually let into their cellular base because it has the right chemical compounds to be able to heal and to be able to help. You're looking at then, using this plant for really severe diseases that we don't know why they're caused by. We don't know that yet. We don't know how we can best serve through the chemical compounds that the pharmaceutical industry has offered us so far without really severe side effects. And that's almost the key, I think, as well, is that the pharmaceutical industry has a lot to offer in terms of steroids, in terms of drugs that control chemical releases in the brain, hormonal releases in the brain. It has a lot to offer there. But at what expense? Whenever you read down the list of contraindications, the list of possible side effects on any of the drugs for MS, for epilepsy, for vertigo even, which again is a personal experience of mine, the side effects are on a parallel, if not worse, than the experiential effects of the disease itself. Now, I treat a number of people through my yoga, through like almost yoga therapy, who have degenerative diseases that affect them hourly, like literally every hour they are dealing with severe pain, and their quality of life is so severely affected by it. And what the medical, I suppose the medical and the pharmaceutical industry has to offer allows them to cope on a certain level, but it doesn't allow them any sense of release from what they're experiencing. It doesn't allow them full and total control over the disease, over the affliction that they're experiencing. It allows them some kind of control, but there's always a price to pay, always a price to pay. And I see that all the time with my clients. And this is something where I feel really strongly about cannabis, because actually the byproducts of cannabis are really much more manageable than I see the byproduct of these pharmaceutical drugs to be. And I think that this is where the big kind of shutdown, if you like, on cannabis as a medicinal drug is coming from the pharma industry. They know that there really is no substitute for the cannabis plant. They don't have one yet. Even the chemical compounds that they have made up that are technically a pharma constitution of the chemicals that are reactive in the cannabis plant, both from cannabinoids and from the THC value in terms of the psychoactive, being able to manage pain responses in the mind and therefore in the body, and to be able to calm you down so that you're not having seizures, so that you can respond well and calm the state of your body through intense pain bursts that come from cancers, that come from degenerative autoimmune system diseases, from all sorts of kind of muscular, physical tendon pain, fibromyalgia, the very physicality, the very fibers of your tissue aching and being sore to just the lightest of touch. This is a drug that can actually counterbalance some of those feelings and allow you to experience a better quality of life through this disease. So it may not be able to cure it, but with a lot less side effects, you are able to increase your quality of life whilst using it. And I think that's what every single case of concurrent medicinal use of marijuana or cannabis or either one of the two derivatives of this plant proves to us. And you see it in children. You see it in 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, middle-aged people. You see it in older people. There's even been studies and experience shown on animals who have varying different degrees of pain, hip dysplasia, sort of like almost epilepsy in dogs. I've seen cannabis oil being given to a dog and their seizures almost stop. That there's so much evidence that it can't be ignored anymore. Unfortunately, I feel like because there is so much evidence come to play, because the underlying majority of people on this planet have the base knowledge that cannabis actually isn't as bad as it's always been, portrayed to be, we have an opportunity here. We have the ability to really be able to open up not just the dialogue on whether or not cannabis is, a drug that can be used for medicinal, emotional, mental issues that we're experiencing as human beings on this planet in this day and age, but also how we can really begin to open up a way of working with this plant that benefits society and not just individuals. Because I think that's the other thing as well. When you talk about cannabis being a gateway drug, the only way that I can see through my own personal experience of cannabis, it being a gateway drug, is the fact that the longer it stays illegal, the more you have to go through illegal sources to be able to consume it, to be able to take it, to be able to buy it, right? The more experience you have with these people, the greater that influence comes into your life. Now, if you were able to just go into the pharmacy down the road, as I'm able to now, to buy an aspirin or to buy even, get a regular pharma repeat prescription and be able to go down there and buy cannabis or buy a construct of the oil or an edible, something where the plant or the oil has been made into something that you can eat, which basically gives you a longer period of time that you are experiencing pain relief. Whatever it is that you're looking for help with, if I was able to just go down to the road and pick this up quickly and securely from a chemist or from a registered outlet, it would stop all that kind of black market dealing, and it would stop all of the, I suppose, opportunities for younger, more impressionable people to be offered more impressionable drugs in on their life. Okay, so that's kind of almost the given for me right now, and I think that's a part of the dialogue around cannabis that is regularly being cited as one of the reasons that it should be legalized, is that actually you take away a lot of the power of these drug lords, gangs, whatever you want to call them, by making cannabis legal. There's a lot of revenue to generate from it. Various states in the US are building schools, and in Canada's been amazing in the forefront of opening up cannabis as a medicinal drug, but also in recreational terms as well. They're kind of the idea that people who are stoned are a lot less violent, a lot less aggressive, a lot more mellow and a lot more calm as individuals than those people on alcohol. Well, alcohol has never had a restriction since the 1930s, since Prohibition then ended, because it was, again, became more viable to use alcohol and to tax it and to gain money through it. So begins the whole kind of debate on really why alcohol was legalized and cannabis then wasn't. But it just has become a controlled drug, I think, because there's money to be made from the derivatives of it. There's money to be made. It's kind of one of these blanket drugs that helps so many things that to be able to make it legal takes away a lot of power from a lot of people. So anyway, that's my own personal thing on it. So going back to the history of it, we're talking about thousands and thousands of years throughout sub-Asian culture, throughout Middle Eastern culture, and then early in the 18th century, it being taken over to the Americas and being used and grown in Chile, and then being able to just permeate really through and up into North America. Where again, like I say, in the early 1900s, it began to get a really bad name because of the bridges, the cultural bridges that it was beginning to kind of form in society, and how that didn't marry with the control aspect of the politics at that time. And so we come back to kind of what it was that people were using it for at that time, how it was that it was being used, how it was that it was being cultivated, where farmers were actually beginning to kind of buy it and sell it, and it was beginning to become, a well-documented herb and a way of being able to cross cultural barriers, open up minds, and really release the control, the victim feeling that was being cultured at that time through all the political stuff that was going on. So now, at this time in our history, we are looking at cannabis as really being medicinal. We're looking at as it being a psychoactive drug. And I kind of bring the story, I suppose, back to my friend Pip, because I feel like this is somebody who has been brought fully in the crossfire of this. There are a lot of instances in my life where I have been judged for using cannabis, let's say. And it's always been a negative judgment, which is a given. But I've never, ever had a run-in with any high level of authority that's made me have to really evaluate my use of marijuana for the various things that I've kind of brought it in for throughout my life. And yet my friend Phil is now in jail because of receiving through the post 3 grams of THC oil that he uses for arthritic pain, and that he has been using for arthritic pain because of, as I said earlier, an injury that he sustained early on in life. Now, he had a really serious injury and really serious surgery subsequent to that. And I've invited his ex-wife, Michelle, to come on today, really to talk about his case, because I feel really strongly about this. I feel really strongly that Pip could be a catalyst here for opening up more of a conversation about where medicinal cannabis and medicinal use of the cannabis plant is situated now in our world. It's opening up. We've got 28 states, I think it is now, in the US that have legalized cannabis, and where you can legally go and buy cannabis. Again, in Canada, it's become, almost widespread use. And certainly in the UK, laws are beginning to relax. We're beginning to see kind of different areas in Europe relax completely, almost, like, in Portugal and in Spain now, and I'm not sure about France, but certainly there's some parts of Italy as well. You can go into coffee shops, register coffee shops, and you can register yourself there as a member. And you have to give over your passport. It's really quite kind of legal. You have to pay a joining fee. The police come in and regularly monitor the use of the coffee shop and how it's being used, and that the things that people are buying are being used on the premises and not being used outside. It's a controlled environment, but it's still open, and it's still legal, and you're still able to kind of go and consume as you would do alcohol in a public house, for example, right? So this is beginning to change. The idea around it is beginning to change. And yet still the idea of medicinal use of cannabis is really being constricted. It's being really kind of, tightened, and only in certain instances, only for certain illnesses, only in certain cases. Most recently, there was a case that kind of shocked me really, of a young boy coming into the UK from Canada who had his medicinal CBD oil, I think it was, taken away from him because he had been using it regularly for his epilepsy. He was having a ridiculous amount of fits every week. And after 300 days of regularly using the cannabis oil, he had, I think it was broken down for something like he was having 1 fit in every 100 days or something like that, which was, amazing. And so anyway, the use of kind of medicinal cannabis and the success stories that we're hearing throughout the globe across genre after genre after genre of illness, really, I suppose I really want to open up this dialogue as to how important it is for the users and what a difference it makes. And this is really where I want to bring Michelle in, because Michelle, your ex-husband is currently in a rehab center in Indonesia. He's been moved from the jail where he was arrested and taken to, and he's now in a rehab center so that you can get a lesser sentence for him, because of he's just literally received this 3 grams of THC oil in the mail. Is that right?
Yeah. So, okay. Okay. there are a few conversations that I think are really important to have. And one of them is definitely the conversation around medical marijuana and its uses and its very apparent benefits and value to many, many people all over the world. But that's actually not something that I can talk about. What I can talk about from our own point of view is that it was interesting listening to you talking about your experiences becoming a mother and your decisions around, you know, the kind of mother that you wanted to be, because really the reason that I'm here and the reason that I am part of the campaign to bring Pip home is because I'm a mother. Because Pip is the father of my 2 children. And what has happened is that, you know, he had a very, very serious motorbike accident in his early 20s. It basically completely shattered his left leg. He went on to become a British champion mixed martial artist, Thai kickboxer. Absolutely amazing, top of his field. But because of the mixture of, you know, having this injury and also the repetitive kind of exercise that he was doing over time, he basically ended up with very, very severe arthritis, to the level that at the age of 39, he actually elected to go and have a hip resurfacing operation. So he has a titanium hip in his left side. And, you know, this is something that people may consider way later in life. So to do that at the age of 39, it kind of gives you an idea of how much pain he was actually in. And so he has been using medical marijuana to manage this pain from his arthritis for some time now. The issue comes into play where, you know, he went to Bali. And, you know, he surfs and he paints. He's an incredibly talented artist. But it is illegal to use medical marijuana in Indonesia, as it is in many places around the world. However, things are changing as we speak. But, you know, at the end of the day, he crossed the line.
Yeah.
And you know, he's incredibly sorry for crossing that line, but it's kind of, we have to balance and weigh up, you know, when we're having this conversation, this is a man who's in pain, constant pain, and this is the only thing that helps him. And he did something that was really stupid because he just wanted to be out of that pain. And I think that everybody can sort of just connect in with some time in their lives where they've made a mistake because they've been in pain. I mean, I don't know a single human being who hasn't made a mistake, first and foremost. And when you're in pain, you just do anything to make it stop. And so it's a really difficult sort of conversation to have, because there's the conversation about medical marijuana and its absolute benefit. It's clear, obvious benefits. But then there's also the question of, you know, he's there where he is right now because he did break the law.
I think one of the irony, sorry, Michelle,
go on.
I just think one of the ironies with it as well is we've all been brought up and conditioned that when you take medicine for anything, you keep taking it, you regularly take it, you keep on board, you keep, you know, you don't almost think about it. You take what works.
Becomes your conditioning.
But also you just do it, don't you? You know, like you get up in the morning and you take whatever you need. Like
you eat your greens and you take your medicine.
Exactly. And if you don't want to get pregnant, you take your contraceptive pill every day. If you have like your MS, for example, then you're taking a barrage of different pharmaceutical medicines every single day. It just becomes routine. You know, I grew up with my grandparents literally starting their day with breakfast and, you know, a little line of multicolored pills about 10, 15 different pills for blood pressure, for arthritis, for all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But it was like a little line of them, you know, and and so right from a little girl, again, you're conditioned to kind of just believe that, okay, you take the medicine, it helps, you just keep taking the medicine, right? So for him, I can understand as well how it might not have clicked, because in some level of his psyche, it's not cannabis that he's taking.
No,
it's medication. Do you know what I mean? It's helping his pain. And when you do live with pain daily, and unfortunately I've been there on a couple of occasions in my life where I'm literally living with pain that feels debilitating every day. Unfortunately for me, it's been a very short period of time, but I know Pip has lived with this for years now. And like you say, to find something that actually works, you know, when all the other things that he's tried in itself must have been so liberating for him, because he loves to be in his body, and he's a very, you know, active and able, like you say, you know, you've got to love to be in your body to achieve all those accolades physically, right? And to put through those pain barriers. And I mean, I got my dates a little bit wrong, but like you said, 39, to elect to have such serious surgery does give you an idea of how much pain, you know, he would have been in on a daily basis. And I think you just, when you start taking medicine, it just gets into that part of your psyche where you just take it and you just get on with your day, don't you? Same way as you would, you know, angina medicine, or, you know, if you know, thinning your blood, take an aspirin every day. I mean, you know, Spanish believe in that. Like, it's so funny, every time I go to Spain, you know, we have family over there, and, you know, one of the members of the family will regularly take a sachet of aspirin every morning. It's what the Spanish do. I ask her what she's doing. She's like, it's what we do. It gets us through. And she just knocks it back without a second. And I'm like, what? But that's become so inherent in their culture. Buy a packet of like 50 aspirin sachets is just over €1, just to give you some idea. It's just over €1, and everybody's doing it. You know, it's available in the supermarket. You just chuck them in, and there you go. So sorry to interject, but I can totally see why he wouldn't have necessarily twigged, if you like, when moving from one country to another, that his medication, because he's not, you know, taking this for any other reason than his hip and his arthritis, and he's not getting any benefit from it other than the, you know, the sense of release of pain. You know, he's still carrying on, you know, painting and surfing and living a really active lifestyle. This is not a man who's just zoning out and bombing out. No. You know, it's not somebody who's, you know, he's conforming to the typical stereotype, right? So, you know, I just wanted to interject, because I can totally see how he's kind of done this almost, you know, how made, like you say, it is a mistake. It's a legal mistake. And I know he's ashamed of not being as present, if you like, and as aware of the legality issues around it all, as he should have been, perhaps. But at the same time, as a human being, I can certainly see from that perspective how it would have come about. But please, sorry.
Well, I mean, we're kind of living in, you know, straddling two different paradigms at the moment, right? And we've kind of got, you know, if you looking at plant medicine in general terms, you know, this is the original medicine. It's what all pharmaceutical medicine is actually based upon. It's what, you know, they'll look at something that's already found in nature and they will recreate it in a laboratory so that it can be patented. You know, the pharmaceutical industry is the most lucrative industry on earth.
Absolutely.
You know, and so we're kind of straddling these two paradigms where it's like, you know, the original medicines, the medicines that were used for hundreds and thousands of years in the past, which did all kinds of miraculous things for our bodies and our minds, have kind of been totally discounted and out-marketed, if you like, because we've got these pharmaceutical companies who are producing their own versions of these medicines, which are far more lucrative. Because it costs a lot of money to produce all of these plants, and you can't patent these plants, and anyone can grow their own plants, and you know, so it's that whole kind of conversation that opens up when you're having, you know, when you're thinking about this. But I mean, ultimately for me right now, it's a conversation about liberation on so many levels, you know, because literally, as a human being, I really do believe that we have the right to choose what we do with our own bodies and what we put into our own bodies, and to use nature to heal ourselves. Like I fundamentally believe that is a choice that we should all have, that we should be free to make. But there's also this part around, you know, respecting the cultures of the places that you go to and respecting their laws. And so it's a difficult conversation to kind of get the balance right between, but I can only really speak from my experience, and I'm a mother and I've got two gorgeous children, and basically the options that are on the table right now are that because this is a man who uses medical marijuana to manage his pain from his arthritis, these two children may either grow up with their father at home, or they may grow up with a father on the other side of the planet in prison, not just any prison, but one of the most notorious prisons on earth. And he may not be there for their entire childhood. And those are the two sort of possibilities that are currently on the table. He may be able to go down the rehabilitation route and serve a shorter sentence, or he may have to go down the prison route and serve a much longer sentence. And the truth is that nobody knows how this is going to play out. But, you know, it's certainly a conversation that I'm sure will open up lots of other conversations about how we view plant medicine, and what we're allowed to do with it and we're not allowed to do with it, and the way that it's seen and kind of demonized in a lot of places. But it's just a very strange position for us all to find ourselves in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Pitt was arrested at the end of November last year, wasn't it?
It was the gosh, it feels like I don't even know when it was anymore. It was the beginning of December, though, I believe. Right at the beginning of December. It's just been a bit of a blur, really.
So I know you guys are fundraising to basically get the money together to be able
for his legal fees,
essentially get. But to be able
for the hope to. But so basically, there is a legal team over there who have already had him moved into a rehabilitation facility, which is amazing. And they believe that as a regular user of medical marijuana, they can actually secure him a sentence in rehabilitation. It's not definite, it's not a given, but it's our only hope, basically, to bring him home. And so we need to pay for those legal fees. So we've raised quite a lot of money so far already. People have been incredibly generous and so kind, and it's been a miracle to watch it unfolding. I think it's really touched the hearts of a lot of people. People who do use medical marijuana, people who have children of similar ages. Just a lot of people are kind of thinking that actually that could have been me. Very easily could have been me. It's not like he's done something, this isn't a kilo of cocaine we're talking about being smuggled on a plane. This is a very, very innocent mistake. And a lot of people could have made the same mistake. And I think a lot of people are sort of feeling that, and just want to do everything they can to help him get back home to the kids, really. That's
it hit home to a lot of people. I mean, you can buy CBD oil in Holland and Barrett now.
I know.
When you come from that perspective, and I absolutely agree with you. And I've travelled extensively, and you must make yourself aware of all the laws and everything going into different countries. And I think the majority, certainly when I was traveling around, like in the 90s and the early noughties, you know, it was almost the lure of the country was sometimes, you know, what the laws were and whether it was a dangerous country or not, and you know, whether it had like civil war and, you know, that sort of stuff. That was actually a bit of a lure at that time. And I mean, yeah, you do have to kind of be aware. But like I say, when you come from a country where CBD oil is available on the high street,
I know.
You know, it does kind of strike home to people because you recognise that could easily have been you. You know, I have very many people using CBD and THC oil for various different complaints. Like I have a friend who is like stage 4 cancer, you know, and she was given 3 months to live 9 years ago now. And that was by the doctors, that was by the NHS in the UK. And she decided that she didn't want to go through the chemotherapy and all that sort of thing. She wanted to give her body a chance to heal holistically before anything else. And it's been that journey that's kept her going through the last 9 years. So she's had surgery a little bit here and there, but, you know, she's been taking THC for the pain of the tumours that they're, you know, that's causing. She's been taking CBD to put directly on the tumours, again, for pain, for inflammation, to be able to help the construct of the cells there. You know, I have a client who is looking into actually the benefits of, you know, cannabinoids for her MS at the moment. And this is a 63-year-old lady. You know, she just, nothing is touching the sides for her. Since she was 33 years old. You know, at that point, she's like, I'm 30 years down. I have little quality of life. I can't go to weddings. I can't do this. I can't do that. You know, it's seriously affecting the quality of people's lives. And like you say, I mean, I believe the same thing, that, you know, as individuals and as adult individuals as well, let me just clarify that as well, that anything biological should really be down to our own sense of self-judgment, because we are biological beings. You know, yes, there are plants that are poisonous on this planet, but there are also a million more plants that are medicinal for us in one way or another. And we have millennia of proof, of experience, of examples, you know, to be able to lean back on for security, for knowledge, for guidance, to be able to use these plants in the best way possible. And then I'm kind of a big believer in using the miracle of modern science and the miracle and the knowledge and, you know, the experience of the ancients, and merging the two to really be able to kind of create a hybrid way of medicine, if you like, of healing ourselves. That is progressive medicine. And I you know, I know that I share that opinion with you and with a lot of people watching as well. So it's kind of, like I said, I suppose I feel like this case is really important, and I'm so glad you've joined me. Thank you so much, because apart from being able to kind of perhaps help Pip, if anybody's out there and this story is touching them the same way as it's touched us both as well, and you know, they really recognize that, God, this hits close to home. You know, this is something that I'm experiencing. This is something that I could have easily done. This is something that, you know, I'd hate that to have to go through for my children. I mean, I know your children very, very well, and I know how close they were to their dad as well. And you know, you guys used to spend every day together while you were living in Thailand, which is where we reconnected and stuff. Kind of, you know, for me, it's, you know, I don't want your children, your two beauties to have to go through that. And the stigma that would be attached to them as well. You know, where's daddy?
Exactly.
You know, people should be able to be honest about, you know, where they've come from. There should be no shame, and especially on children. Like, I'm an advocate for being able to live honestly. You know, I think the cultural conditioning that we have as adults, where we feel sometimes that we're not enough, comes majority from the majority, apart from when we're children. And I would hate for this stigma to be inflicted on your children, or indeed anybody else's children who have a more open mind perhaps, and have a more open perspective on life and history and culture and, you know, medicine and how different plants and different substances and different ways of working. You know, it wasn't so long ago that yoga was seen as being like this crazy thing, you know, and now, you know, look at it, it's mainstream. And, you know, and people are able to make a decent living out of it, whereas before you were practically just giving it away, you know. And so I feel like it's again, we're in the middle of this step, like you say, between two paradigms that are really shifting because they have to, because there's too much knowledge, there's too much research, there's too much history, there's too much experience now for it all to be ignored. And yeah, I kind of, I feel like that. And I know that I agree with you, yes, Pip should have been more aware for sure. But like I say, I see where he's gone with it, because I just think when you get used to taking something as like a tincture, as, just something that you just take and then you get on with your day, it doesn't necessarily twig,
I know.
Problem.
Yeah, I know. I mean, this is what I mean. I've had lots of people get in touch with me and, say to me, oh my God, that could have been my child.
Yeah.
Or, oh my goodness, that actually could have been me on holiday, and it's just one of those things where it's a really, really tricky situation. But at the end of the day, and as his ex-wife as well, it's not even, there are many things I could say about my ex-husband. I'm sure you can imagine, like everyone who's ever split up with someone could have a million things that you could say, but he is not a man who deserves to go to prison for any length of time because he did something to stop himself being in pain.
Yeah.
It's, and that's the bottom line, really. And my children don't deserve to grow up without their father because of that same reason. And, that's all I can really talk about at this time. But I think that, I do hope that people start to have these conversations more openly, in their homes with their kids, in schools, everywhere, really, because we do need to be having these conversations more. And it's interesting to watch the things that are shifting and changing. You mentioned the little boy. I think there were two young boys with certain kinds of epilepsy recently that really changed the game, especially here in the UK, in terms of doctors actually beginning to prescribe medical marijuana. And that's a big shift. But you're right. This is, it's on the CBD oil is on it's on the shelves.
Nice trick. Yeah.
It's everywhere. You'd only need to, pack it in your toiletries bag and go to the wrong place to find yourself potentially in a similar situation. And so we're fundraising our little socks off at the moment, and doing everything that we can to make sure that these legal fees can get paid, and hopefully he'll be back sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and I know Pip's been helping himself as well. Again, not one to just sit back and kind of be, letting everybody from the outside help. He's been doing loads of painting from his ward, hasn't he? And all the paintings are going up for auction. And like you say, he's an incredible artist.
Yes, he really is.
Just for anybody who's ever admired, he's the guy who put my phoenix on my arm. And he just freestyled that, and I was just perfectly to my spec, so just, and I just feel, again, like, he's not just sitting back and, sitting thinking, oh God, woe is me. He's actively trying to get himself out of this situation. He's, phoning your children, I think, is it daily or bi-daily at least? And
he's talking to them all the time, writing them the most beautiful handwritten letters with gorgeous little pictures that he's drawn in them all. And he's very respectful of the Indonesian culture as well, and the Indonesians, and the way that he's been treated. We're so grateful. They've just been amazing, honestly. He did a portrait recently of the lady that runs the rehabilitation centre and her husband, which is amazing. But I mean, he's a guy who's got an incredible future ahead of him. He really is an amazing artist, and actually, just before this happened, he'd been given an incredible opportunity to exhibit some of his artwork in some seriously big galleries,
Yeah.
And everything was about to turn around for him, you know, for the better. And so, yeah, I mean, I just, as a friend to him, you know, and a woman who spent 12 years of my life with this man and had children with this man, I would just really love to see him walk free and actually, you know, just be who he came here to be, really. And just hope it can happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, nothing's a given, but yeah, we just got to go down the roads that we're on, make sure we can pay these legal fees. And I mean, people are doing incredible things. I've got, you know, a friend who's selling cupcakes. You know, she's raised about £500 selling luxury cupcakes, you know, and there's just so many people just doing all of these different things, you know, using all of their skills and all of the beautiful gifts that they have to do everything they can to raise these legal fees. And it's been really inspiring to watch that and to see that unfold. And I think you know, Phil's feeling probably more loved than he ever has in his whole life because of that outpouring from just every direction. But it's really just about, let's make it happen, let's raise this money, and let's let his lawyers do their job, and fingers crossed that it all pans out in the way that we hope it will, really.
Yeah, now you've got an auction of some of the amazing gifts that people have donated, and artwork. And is there anything else that's stuff? I mean, it's so much random stuff on there. It's going to be brilliant. Like when? Is it coming together? When can we?
So we're still waiting to kind of figure out what date we're going to run the auction on. There's been like the amount of logistics and the stuff that we've had to learn and the barriers we've had to overcome, because there's all these rules and regulations around how you run a raffle online. You need to have a license. So we couldn't do that. So, and then when we figured out how to get the licensing on the app that we were going to use, we figured out we couldn't use multiple prizes, so we couldn't do that. So now it's just going to basically be a live stream. And during the live stream, we're just going to auction off all of these amazing prizes that people have donated. I mean, we've got a week in a luxury detox resort on Koh Samui in Thailand. We've got, you know, a week in a brand new 1-bedroom beachfront property. We've just incredible, amazing stuff people have donated. So I don't know what the date's going to be just yet, but at some point I'll be doing a live stream, and we just hope that people will come on and share with as many other people as possible, and we can just donate some amazing prizes, and people can win some great stuff, and we can raise these legal fees. That's the hope.
Okay. So and people can just donate as well. You know, just if you're feeling called, you know, I mean, obviously we would be very, very, you know, grateful, eternally grateful, and so I would Pip. But if you do feel touched by this story and you would like to donate to a very worthy cause, is it www.getpiphome.co.uk, Michelle?
It's getpipbackhome.co.uk.
So I'll put that in the link underneath as well, underneath the video. And so, you can go on there and you can donate, you know, however much, or, you know.
And really, I mean, people are constantly saying, I can't donate much. But honestly, all of those little £5, whatever, however small the donations are, they really, really add up. So please don't think that if you can only donate a small amount, it's not going to make a difference, because it really does make a difference. And honestly, every single donation that comes in, like, we just really feel it energetically, and Pip really feels it energetically, just the support of everybody coming in from every direction. And I can't express how much of a difference that makes.
It's the energy as well, isn't it? It's knowing that you're not on your own with this, I suppose, as well. You know, I mean, I've often imagined him in his, you know, in his cell on his own, and just so far from everything and everyone that he loves and that he's familiar with. And, you know, this is not a guy who's regularly been behind bars or anything like that. I mean, this is a very free living guy, you know, travels, surfs, painter, you know, this is a free spirit of a man who is incarcerated. I mean, I actually couldn't imagine anything worse. You know, literally. And I mean, I know it would be everybody's nightmare, don't get me wrong, but when you have a mind that is so free and that is so exploratory in terms of art and in terms of creativity, you know, it's really, it's soul destroying to be in captivity, right? You know, to kind of be cut off from inspiration, you know, from being able to see colours in the world, you know, all that sort of stuff. I mean, I've spoken very candidly to him over the sort of 7 odd hours that we were doing our arm about, you know, the art, especially because I'm so in awe, because I'm just so not an artist. And just his descriptions of like light and, you know, the shapes, movement, that sort of thing. I mean, my mind just doesn't work like that. But like you said, this is an incredibly talented guy. And, you know, and I like you would like to see him come out of this. Obviously, you know, having grown, because I don't think you can go through it's like this and not have a significant shift. But I would also like to kind of, I suppose, see, you know, him really fulfill his potential, like you say, just, you know, see him come here to be the person that he's come to be.
Absolutely.
A lot more that we can see from him over the years.
Absolutely.
You know, and I'm excited to kind of to share that journey with him almost as well. So if you do feel like donating, if you can donate, I should say, please do, at www.getpipbackhome.co.uk. There are links on the website there. You'll see Pip's face, you'll see his kids, you'll see Michelle. There's a beautiful video from his family who are obviously, I mean, you can't even imagine the distress that you would feel in this situation. But, you know, you know, it's a very touching story and it's a very honest story. And yeah, like I say, I think as the paradigm shift, it's a story that needs to be told as well. This is something that we need to be aware of. We need to be aware that, you know, as much as we might want things to change, there are still legal restraints out there in the world that are not shifting quickly. And so almost on the back of Pip's experience, I'm sure he'd be the first one to say, for God's sake, whenever you travel, please make yourself aware of all the rules, all the regulations, and you have to respect the culture of countries that you're going into, whether you agree with it or not.
Yes, absolutely do.
Wise decisions and base your travel on places that allow you to be the person that you want to be, or curtail that.
Exactly.
So the place that you want to see, you know, that's the other thing. You don't have to kind of, there are ways around these things. So you know, I really want to be respectful of the Indonesian government, because I know you've said and Pip said that they have treated him in these facilities so incredibly well, in the circumstances, you know, in light of where he is exactly, and the sort of, you know, the other people that he's sharing these spaces with, who perhaps aren't as you know, innocent really as Pip. And so, yeah, I want to be really, really respectful. And I've been to Bali and I've been all over Indonesia, and it's a beautiful, beautiful country and very friendly, lovely people in my opinion as well. So I certainly don't want to, you know, make any detrimental comments there. But it's just really about the circumstance, I think, and what we can do to perhaps help. And, you know, on the Conscious Consumer Network, you know, people that are watching are, I know, conscious individuals, people who are open-minded, who are trying to shift paradigms in their own worlds and live more freely. And so, you know, I suppose I'm hoping that on the back of this, you know, people will connect in spiritually and emotionally, and you know, just be able to recognize perhaps, part of themselves in this story from wherever, you know, whatever perspective you look at it from. So
there's one thing that I would really love to leave your audience with as a thought, if I can, hun, and it's that, you know, what we're doing right now, all of this fundraising, this huge effort of literally hundreds and hundreds of people all over the world coming together to try to raise these legal fees for Pip. You know, what we're doing ultimately is we're fighting for his freedom to choose what he does with his life after this. That's all we're fighting for, right? And I really want to take an opportunity to remind everybody who's watching that you have that freedom right now. And it's always like, you know, these big life-changing things that happen in our world, you know, when we lose somebody close to us, you through bereavement, and there's that moment, isn't there, where you stop and you go, my God, I'm going to live my life, like I really mean it now, I'm really going to live my life. Or if you're worried about your health and then you find out you've got the all clear, it's like, oh my God, I'm really going to make something of my life, I'm really going to do what it is that I came here to do. And it's like, I just keep on reflecting on the fact that that's what we're fighting for, literally just his freedom to choose what he does next. And nobody knows what he's going to do next. Nobody knows what the future's going to look like, but we're fighting for his freedom to choose. And we've all got that freedom right now, and just don't waste it, because this is your life. And on a higher level, you can either keep yourself in your own prison, or you can go out there and really live your life. And for me, it's a really big message that's come out of this whole situation for me, is that actually we're all free right now to choose what we do, and it's not a freedom that we should take lightly.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining me, Michelle. I mean, we've ended quite on a personal note, but I think it's a really important tie-in. Like I say, I want to open this year with this show, being able to kind of just open minds a little bit more to more alternative, if you like, healing. I mean, I don't even like the word alternative, because for me, when you're looking back at the
original,
cannabis, for example, and it's like 12,000 years old, that's not alternative, that's mainstream.
That's original.
That's right. And why is it original? Because that's what we always have had, and that's what was always working until, like you say, you kind of got out-marketed by a little bit of money and a little bit of, different colour and flash images and stuff like that. And then before you know it, the miracle is sold as being, okay, just take this pill and all will be well. And actually, I think also we have enough kind of experience with that independently as individuals as well to know that that's not the case. Actually that never did come true. So why not work back with our bodies, with nature, with the world, and really begin to use everything that we've learned scientifically and through the medical fields and stuff, all that amazing stuff that doctors and nurses do every day in terms of care, in terms of scientific experimentation, all that, and use it with the ancient antidotes that that we've had for millennia. And let's really harness the power that is in these plants, that's on our planet, and that we recognize on a cellular level, which to me is kind of baseline.
Totally. Totally. I think it's really important to kind of just acknowledge, we're not bashing the pharmaceutical industry. It's like, in an emergency, thank God for the NHS is all I'm going to say. Oh my God, they're amazing people. And, when you need that service, I mean, they're just incredible. They do amazing, amazing work. But the system is massively overburdened because we're literally kind of in this mindset that the second we have a sniffle or anything going on, we need to go to the doctor and ask the doctor what is wrong with us, and ask the doctor to prescribe us something that will make us better. And, what you're talking about in terms of, a lot of the time, the things that we're prescribed deal with the symptoms. They don't deal with the underlying root cause of why we've got the symptom in the first place. But we become dependent on these things, and then they're gateways to all kinds of other stuff.
Absolutely.
Whereas natural medicine, a lot of the time it has side benefits instead of side effects. And we need to kind of think about that in terms of what is the stuff we want to be taking every day. And absolutely, the medical world is incredible. When there's an emergency, when there's something acute, absolutely, go and get everything that you possibly can from their amazing wisdom. But they are massively overburdened, and we can help them as much as we help ourselves by actually taking back our own power around our own health.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of that is proactive as well. I mean, this is kind of we're digressing a little bit, but a lot of it, progressive. The idea that you think of yourself and looking after yourself on a daily basis rather than just responding when everything goes wrong,
exactly,
is a huge sort of paradigm shift. and one that I'm really, really focused on opening up, especially this year. I've got a few courses coming out that are really all about that, like, you know, putting yourself first, and you know, really coming from that space, so that when things do go wrong, you know, you have options as well. It's just not all, oh my God, it's life or death type thing. You know? And just by making a few small shifts in mindset and in lifestyle, you know, you can really increase your, you know, the longevity of your life, and increase the quality of your life, more importantly. You know? And we were literally discussing this today, how I just feel like, you know, people work so hard now, you know, life is so busy and so stressful. And I just feel like I want to enable people to really get the most out of it, because if you're going to work that hard, then, you know, there has to be the counterbalance to it. You know, there has to, like, we know enough now to know that, you know, keeping everything in balance, it can shift one way or another, but just bring it back to balance for the majority, you know.
If you're going to work hard, you've got to self-love hard too.
That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely. I know you're an advocate as well, babe. I'll get you on again. We'll talk self-love some more. But listen, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, darling.
And best of luck with all the fundraising.
Thank you.
I've already offered my own contribution. So, you know, again, if you need me for anything else, please do shout. And if anybody watching would like to contribute, the website is www.getpipbackhome.co.uk. Please go, please donate. If you'd like to contact Michelle or myself directly to offer anything for the raffle, for the auction, that would be amazing. I will put, Michelle, if it's all right with you, Michelle, I'm going to put your email address down below, and I'll put my email address down below as well. And, you know, please do get in contact with us. You know, anything that you can donate, any wisdom that can be given, any way of helping that you can think of that you feel called or drawn to do would be amazing, and is, you know, as always, immensely gratefully received. So thank you so much in advance for anything that anybody can do there.
And also, when you donate, you get invited into the Facebook group. We've got a private Facebook group where we're kind of updating everybody on what's going on, and sometimes Pip will actually be able to come in every now and again. And so if you were interested in the massive auction that at some point I am going to be doing, you'll hear about it in the group. So brilliant. And that's for any donation. It doesn't matter if it's like 50p or whatever, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, okay, that's brilliant. Okay, so there you go. Keep abreast of the situation. Get on board with that auction, because listen, holidays in Koh Samui and coaching and so many different products.
So much.
A little kind of, because like, you know, obviously I was invited to donate, and I just like looked down and all everybody, because there was like 168 comments by the time I read it, you know, and I was just like, wow. I mean, the outpouring has been amazing, but there is still a lot left to raise, and we really are keen to get Pip back home. So again, www.getpipbackhome.co.uk. Get on there. Let's make this happen, and let's start this shift. You know, I know we've got the power, so, you know, everybody get out there, and like Michelle says, $1, $2, $5, whatever you can do, everything counts. Every heartfelt gesture matters. The energy behind it matters, and the donation itself matters. So please, you know, don't shy. Get down there. Thank you all so much for listening. Thank you again, Michelle, for joining me.
Thank you, love.
And light to everybody. Keep safe. Keep your minds open. Big love. Bye-bye.
Humanity has been on an epic journey of discovery, learning the truth about the world we live in. New discoveries about the true origins of humanity, ancient history, free energy, as well as the systematic corruption of world governments are now on the forefront of our daily reality. Is the world headed towards destruction based on control and power? Or is an opportunity now being presented to shift and uplift into a higher consciousness? My name is Mel V, co-founder and creative director of Conscious Consumer Network, an independent broadcast network that was launched on the 1st of January 2015. In the last 3 years, Conscious Consumer Network has broadcast over 2,800 shows in multiple languages, featuring guests from across the world, whilst creating media that is aimed at the creation of a free, fair, peaceful, just, sustainable world. Conscious Consumer Network provides full training and an interactive support network for all broadcasters, and we are always looking for inspiring and educational content.
Hi, this is Lainey Liberty.
And this is Miro Siegel.
In 2018, Conscious Consumer Network has expanded to multiple broadcast locations, increasing our availability and reach across the world, remaining on the cutting edge of independent media. If we wish to create a better world, we must first create better media, geared towards real education instead of indoctrination.
You guys really are what changing the world is going to be about. It's educating kids at a grassroots level.
Having become a pillar of stability in the turbulent world of independent media, we have even more going on in 2018. Conscious Consumer Network is a publicly funded network, and we rely on all of you to keep us on the air. Show your support for independent media by donating to our 2018 Network Support Fund. Dare to seek a better world. Support independent media.